September 19th. Wow, time flies. Edition of the PFF forecast. We are going to get ready for week 3. We're going to talk about the Thursday night game. We're going to talk a little bit about Super Bowl futures because it's never too early to do so. And then, as usual, we are going to battle it out to decide what the lock of the week should be for this week. By the way, we hit the lock of the week. Gardner Minshew, I should say, hit the lock of the week last week. So we'll be making a donation today as well. And then we both have cool stories from the Cincy YMCA.
We do, yep.
Where do you want to start?
Let's talk about the quarterbacks because you were in a meeting today, and I stumbled upon this, what appears to be free money on the floor.
Oh, free money. You don't stumble upon that too often here.
Big Ben, Cam,
Yep.
Darnold, Foles, but probably most importantly, Drew Brees are out this week and for all the subsequent weeks. And I found on an old friend a prop that had the line on the number of Teddy Bridgewater wins as a starting quarterback this season at 6.5.
What would you have made that? So if we had come up with this idea for this prop, what would you have made it yourself?
Well, I think he probably starts. I think 7 games is probably good.
I'm assuming this only counts if he starts the game, right?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is he might not even technically start some of these games. But I would say, I would probably put it at, if you have to put it at a half, I'd put it at 3.5.
Oh, wow. I would have put it at 3.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he starts every game, first off. I don't think he's very good, second off.
That's where you and I differ, but yes.
Right, so my point would be even if he starts a couple of games and they go 1-1, I could easily see him not getting the start, the third game. Yeah. And you never want – Drew Brees is a wily coyote. Could see him coming back a week early, especially if they're not doing well. 6.5 is absurd. Whether you go 3.5, that's double.
I would take the under on him starting 6.5 games,
right,
let alone winning 6.5.
The only issue was when you alerted me to this, you said the max bet was 30. I was ready to risk it all. I was ready to go all in. I was taking the shirt off my back, selling my shoes to put it all in there, but I was only able to bet $25. But
yeah, it's not a huge thing. It's not like and it's at like a very recreational book, et cetera, but it is money that's on the floor.
I have a bigger league-wide question though to do with the quarterbacks.
Okay.
And I'm worried, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm very worried because I like scoring, unlike very many people out there that really love defense and hate touchdowns. I really like scoring, and through 2 weeks, the league averages in terms of EPA per play, per run play, per pass play, most importantly, just comparing weeks 1 and 2 overall to historical seasons. You know what season it looks a lot like?
2017.
2017, and it's by far the worst. Those are the 2 worst seasons. 2017, like the worst season in the past 5 or so in terms of offense. And what we saw in that season was a lot of quarterback injuries, right?
Yep. And we saw people write articles for 538 that said, good luck scoring. The era of scoring in the NFL is over. All that kind of stuff.
What can save us here? Because we have quarterback injuries. We also have teams that, aside from the Chiefs, right? Like the Rams' offense doesn't look nearly as good as it did a season ago. I guess there's the Ravens and the Cowboys who are picking it up, but I do feel overall there's a real lack of offensive excitement.
Well, I think there's a couple things. So our colleague Kevin Cole wrote an article about penalties and how they're increasing, holding specifically. The hard part about holding, though, is I feel like if you called fewer holding penalties, teams would run more.
Yeah.
Because holding is like a negative feedback on running, and running is like this trap, right? Where you can have a Vikings-like game in week 1 against the Falcons, still run the ball well against Green Bay, but be terrible offensively because you can't throw. So maybe would you just say, hey, stop calling holding on pass plays?
I think the PI.
Stop calling offensive pass interference.
Yeah, I think the OPI is the bigger one from an offensive perspective, but that's a couple of plays here and there, and I get the overall. More PIs are being called, and to me that's
it's 0.3% for both types.
To me, that's an indictment on the rule because I think refs don't want to look bad, right? So they're trying to call it more frequently. And it's such a gray area. So it's very weird. It feels unnatural to create a penalty in those situations. So I do think that's a component of it. I mean, basically, we need quarterbacks to step up a little bit. So I think we can save the season. And there are a couple of quarterbacks that I'm looking at in particular. One is Baker Mayfield.
Yep, he needs to play better.
It has been a real disaster. They did not look great against the woeful Jets. But if he steps up, there's a couple others. I think obviously Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott have already.
Have to stay good.
Stay good. Jimmy G.
Has to stay good. I mean, he played okay last week.
Yeah, beginning to rise from that. He's shoving the stone away.
Right.
But there are at least some quarterbacks out there. You've Kyler Murray as well. I think those three quarterbacks getting back on the horse and being, top 10 quarterbacks could save the season.
And you need a hit rate of about 50% on the Mason Rudolphs, the Daniel Joneses, the Gardner Minshews. I'm going to throw Luke Falk out of that situation because and you need Darnold to come back and be okay. Honestly, a guy, and I've been looking at the statistics here, like there's a guy we might have to eat crow about. Josh Allen through 2 weeks, and granted against two of the worst teams in the NFL, 83% adjusted completion percentage, 8 out of 9 yards per attempt, so not dink and dunk stuff. 31.3% of his passes have been positively graded. Only 12% have been negatively graded. And what I think is the most impressive thing, he only has 3% of his throws are big-time throws. So he's not doing it's not the down the field wow stuff that he was drafted for. It's literally the intermediate stuff that's getting positive grades, but not like these big-time throw grades. And then only 1.5% of his passes are turnover worthy. He has to maintain that.
I do not eat crow until after Christmas.
Oh no, I don't. But he would go a long way towards the league having better scoring. Also, some guys that need to step up, frankly, Jared Goff, Matt Ryan, need to play better. I will
say this though: the Bills are probably not making it on a prime time unless something really crazy happens. I mean, that's how I judge it, right? When I go into a week, do I know that I'm going to get 3 to 4 games each week in the right slot where I can watch great football happen?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, unless it's the Chiefs and or the Patriots, I just do not feel that way. I think we're going to talk about the Sunday night game shortly. That one is really interesting because there were 2 quarterbacks you just mentioned. All right, we'll move on from the quarterback discussion. Super Bowl, it's never too early. The Patriots are, the obvious favorite, right? Plus 350.
I think in the betting markets they are the obvious favorite.
Yeah. Kansas City, who has looked really good, I think, but have had some injuries.
And haven't played anybody
yet. About plus 700. Cowboys plus 1,200. Baltimore skyrocketing upwards at plus 2,000. Our simulations say some things that are slightly different.
Well, we have New England. We make New England plus 340, so there's not much value on New England, but we have them, I think, properly pegged here. Yeah. Kansas City, we make about 505. So there is some value if you want to take Kansas City as a future.
Well, you don't have to tempt me because I think Kansas City would be utterly – they have to be making a play for Jalen Ramsey.
I would imagine so.
And we talk about this all the time. So we talked about this with the Khalil Mack trade. You made a great point, which is wins above replacement can be distributed differently and mean different things for different teams. And there is no team in the NFL for whom – Jalen Ramsey's 0.7 wins above replacement would have a bigger impact for 2 reasons. The first is they have one of the worst coverage units in the NFL. They are closer to replacement level players than you will find on any other team. And secondarily, they are at the upper tier in terms of winning games, where those tenths of a win put in the right place are going to mean more, right? If it means home field advantage, that is humongous. So not only is there value as it currently stands, but I think the market is overreacting to Tyreek Hill, who apparently was dribbling a basketball yesterday with both hands. And should they get Jalen Ramsey, how euphoric would you be?
Yeah, and here's the thing. As we wrote about yesterday in our Amazon Web Services article about the New Orleans Saints.
Right. Saying it all out, really.
There has not been a team without a first-round bye that has made the Super Bowl since the 2012 Baltimore Ravens. And it's because of what we just said, right? And this could mean this year might be a little bit more tenuous, but it's difficult to win 3 consecutive games against good quarterbacks and or good coaches and or good defenses. And so if you can get that bye, that's like Ramsey's wins above replacement means so much more for Kansas City going from 12 wins to 12.7 or 13 wins.
Sir, you cannot win a seventh.
Then the Jaguars going from 5.5 wins to 6.3 wins, right? Like, and so he has different utility there. The issue with Kansas City, and the question becomes for them: do you want to win a Super Bowl in Patrick Mahomes' his initial contract? Because for them, the draft picks that they've given up for players are starting to add up a little bit. Mahomes being one of them, Frank Clark being another. But I would certainly be ecstatic with Jalen Ramsey in red and gold.
Oh, you have to do it.
Yeah.
If you can, in any way, shape, or form, without obviously leveraging all of your draft capital, but something reasonable, because you just never know, right? Pat Mahomes is playing as well as any quarterback has played, and crazy things can happen. Hopefully nothing bad does happen, but I think you have to do it. Dallas and Baltimore are interesting because both of those teams are ones that, after running our simulations, I was surprised we were as high on.
Yep.
Because usually the process we've built is very good at not overreacting to things. But they have been incredibly good, and there are a couple things for both these teams that make me bullish. The first one was Baltimore is running play action close to 50% of the time, which is awesome.
Yep.
And Lamar Jackson, similar to Josh Allen, probably more so than Josh Allen, is making accurate throws, especially down the field.
And yes, that's a big thing.
So that's one. And then Dallas is doing something that I did not expect. They're using play action a ton. Dak has been great on it. But they're also avoiding running in disadvantageous situations, which is the last thing you expected. We talked about how we thought they'd do that more after signing Zeke. But they're one of the best teams right now, I think you probably have in front of you, on second and long passing, which is what you'd expect if Kellen Moore had his druthers, but you wouldn't have expected that to actually come to fruition.
Dallas, a neutral game script sort of, they're making the right decision on second down better than any team in the NFL by a lot, and they're successful on over 60% of their second downs, which is unreal, right? I mean, that's tough. Dak Prescott, almost 90% adjusted completion percentage. Every time he drops back to pass, Dallas gains 3/4 of an expected point.
That's great.
Lowest negatively graded throw rate in the league, and 0 turnover-worthy plays so far. So I think when you think about the math on this, I do agree with you that it's somewhat counterintuitive that we would take two teams we were a little lower on and we'd skyrocket them after 2 weeks of playing kind of crappy teams. But here's the thing that I think helps them in our simulation is, well, baseline fundamentals are good, but also the schedule has gotten a lot easier for both of these teams. Sure. When you look at Baltimore, their 2 games against Pittsburgh are easier now without Big Ben. Dallas, again, their schedule is already easy to begin with going into the season, but you've seen some dominoes fall in the NFC that's made that a little bit easier. So the paths are simpler for these two teams, and couple that with, I think, marginal increases in what we've seen in their power rankings, and you get value here. Dallas at plus 1,200, Baltimore at plus 2,000 are good values.
Which one would you rather take if you had to take one?
Baltimore. I like Dallas, and it's clear that Kellen Moore is a huge improvement, but I need to see it against. I've seen Baltimore and how smart they are against teams like Kansas City last season and so forth. Dallas, less of a track record.
I like Baltimore more as a team, but the real kicker here for me is the best team in their division. So the Cowboys have the Eagles, and Baltimore has...
maybe the Browns, and maybe Pittsburgh.
Get out of here.
But probably not. Yeah,
probably not. Okay.
Should we talk about tonight's game?
Oh, do we have to?
And as
I was hoping you'd say, can we talk about college? I was actually...
No.
But you brought
Let's leave college for later. So
tonight's disgusting game between the Titans and the Jags.
Well, because I want to talk about the AFC South.
Oh. It's getting worse.
It is getting worse. Because tonight's game, obviously, Tennessee goes on the road to face Jacksonville. Jacksonville 0-2, Tennessee 1-1. Disappointing loss at home to Indianapolis. Right now in the AFC South, at a reputable book I'm looking at, Houston is still the favorite, but they're only plus 175. The Indianapolis Colts are the second most likely team to win that division according to these odds at plus 200, followed by Tennessee at plus 250.
Wow.
If that's not an overreaction to the first two, like the yo-yoing of the overreacting to
Zigzag theory of gambling.
drubbing the Browns in week 1 on the road,
Yep.
and then losing a disappointing game at home to a team that's not nearly as talented as you, but when it comes to head coaching, laps you 6 times.
Right.
It's this one here. And we like the Colts number is fair. I think the Colts are basically a plus 200 team to win that division, but we would actually probably flip Tennessee and Houston.
Which is so tough to do because my pushback here is that Houston has the 2 best players in this division.
Probably 3 if you count Watt.
Yeah, well, I'm Jalen Ramsey is still a Jaguar.
Sure. Okay.
He probably won't be for much longer. But that's what makes it so hard because if you said, hey, Houston – so think about it this way. Remember last year for this division we had the win or go home game in Tennessee. And if you have that same game, but it is Texans or Colts against the Titans, I don't care where it's played, you're going to have a real hard time convincing me that Marcus Mariota and Mike Vrabel are a better duo than Frank Reich and Jacoby Brissett or Deshaun Watson and Bill O'Brien.
Okay.
For the first reason, because I think Frank Reich is brilliant.
Yeah.
And the second reason, because I think Deshaun Watson is brilliant.
Yeah. The only issue I have with Watson has always been the issue, which is that he doesn't protect himself.
Just win, baby.
He doesn't protect.
He'll die before he'll lose that game.
He doesn't protect himself. That defense is not very good. And I just am very bearish on Houston. But at the same time, you can't convince me to put any fraction of a farm on Tennessee to win that division either, despite the price. So as it pertains to tonight, let's as we sort of think about going through the slate and going through the spreads and everything, we have Tennessee is a 1.5 favorite in Jacksonville tonight. Looks like bad weather. Totals down underneath 40. We kind of like Tennessee here by the numbers, right?
Yeah, which is a hard one for me.
Right. Is it? It did not make our spread picks article if you go to pff.com.
For a reason.
For a reason. I can very easily see Tennessee coming in here and winning by multiple scores.
Really?
But
I can't see that.
Because I think Tennessee, it's weird because we were on Jacksonville last week on the road against Houston. But to me, I always think of Houston as that team that can let a team like Buffalo, let a team like Jacksonville hang around because they give up sacks, they fumble the ball around a little bit.
Sure.
Their defense gives up some big plays. I think Tennessee is one of those teams that drubs the bottom feeders of the world and struggles against basically middle of the pack teams and great teams. And I think Jacksonville right now, as much as I like how gritty Gardner Minshew is, and I like the defense generally, I think Jacksonville is a bottom feeder in this league.
I can see where you're coming from, but then I picture Gardner Minshew and what he's going to show up to this game wearing, and the confidence that's going to instill when he's stretching in his jockstrap in the locker room. And
how much more money did you bet on that game once you saw that tweet?
Oh,
how many farms?
I actually have a story that I've been keeping from you just for this podcast. We're going to talk about the lock of the week that they cemented last week and what I did with my winnings there. I can't. The better quarterback is at home getting points. And so for that reason, I cannot and will not. I have not seen I've not watched
I will shade Marcus Mariota every day of every week, but he is not worse than Gardner Minshew.
He is. He's a worse quarterback. He's a worse leader. And I actually think I feel bad for Marcus Mariota because I think he's had kind of a crappy situation.
For sure.
But the Jaguars are actually going to play Jalen Ramsey, it appears, which I think is ridiculous. You wouldn't do that, right?
No,
absolutely not.
Unless you were intent on keeping him, like unless you thought you were convinced
this game
you
was
could keep him.
Going to convince you to keep him. And then here's the kicker. Let me check the weather here, because there's probably like a monsoon coming, and we know how Gardner Minshew will handle that.
Mariota still just
Wind 16 miles per hour.
Yeah.
I can just see Mariota drops back. Pocket is clean. Throws over the middle. Gust of wind.
I'm sorry, but
interception.
You're going to
pick six.
another. You're going to pick Gardner Minshew because the other quarterback is going to throw a flutterer in the wind.
Let me tell you this. Gardner Minshew has seen some things.
I believe it.
Wind in his face is not going to fluster my man.
This
Minshew.
sounds really bad, but when I think about this game, I think for worst, not for better, but for worst, they're going to run the football. Both teams, and the team that actually has a talented running back is the Titans.
Gardner Minshew has been the better quarterback than Marcus Mariota this season. From a PFF grading standpoint,
I don't disagree.
Has been
Mariota still beneath 100.
Better throwing from a clean pocket.
Clean pocket passer
stunning. So for that reason, we're laying off this game, and for that reason, I would just not be able to bet on the Titans. However, you could potentially convince me to bet on other things associated with the game.
Yeah, like there's a prop
like to do so.
There's a prop I like tonight, which again,
a first time for everything.
You're not gonna like. I like Delaney Walker's over 43.5 receiving yards, -110.
Is there a chance that there's a trick play that AJ Brown throws him a pass or?
No, I think the linebackers for the Jaguars are weak now that Telvin Smith has retired.
Maybe more so that their cornerbacks are strong.
Right? And so I think if there's an exploitive place for the Titans in the passing game, I think it's Walker. And I think the safeties, obviously the safeties for the Jaguars aren't that good as well. Rodney Harrison is a guy that he's just a guy. And so I like this one. This was literally the only one. It was sort of reassuring for our fantasy projections that basically they were on market for everything else. But this was one where I think the over is a solid play.
I'm with you. I would rather bet on Delaney Walker over 43.5 than any side of this game. So there's that. Is this the most excited you've been for the annual Jaguars-Titans Thursday Nighter?
No.
Oh, really?
I mean, because we're not going to see the Jags in those what is that color even?
Yeah, but we get
brown.
So we get the Ramsey thing,
excrement tan, and Titans in navy
blue. Stained my jerseys here. My bad. It's widely available in Florida. So,
right.
But you have the Jalen Ramsey situation, and you have Gardner Minshew, who's by far the best quarterback that the Jaguars have suited up since Mark Brunell. So, all right, let's move on here. Lock of the week. Last week, we took the Jaguars. I believe it was +9, and then the picture of Gardner Minshew getting off the plane surfaces. It goes to +7. And
that was it, right?
That was what it was. And they played kind of inspired-ish football aside from the continuous running of Leonard Fournette straight into
penalties and the fumble.
The holdings on 3rd and 1 were just incessant, but they stuck with it.
How tilted were you during that game?
Of course I was losing my mind. Bill O'Brien goes for the 1 4th down
he's ever gone for,
and it hurts us.
And Watson basically tackled at the 1, and he surges forward. Yeah,
it was just incredible. But we finally get an opportunity to donate. Now, when I saw what Gardner Minshew wore, I went and I put a little bit of extra on there, and so I actually have made a second donation. And it was kind of a me gift and a donation. So I bought some new shoes that say F cancer on the back.
Nice.
So I think 20% of it goes to cancer. So I donated a second time and got some new shoes out of it, which you love to see. So thank you, Gardner Minshew. Have you made your donation yet?
I am going to, after the show, to International Justice Mission. And again, thank you, Gardner Minshew, for doing that. Also, the Jaguars defense as well.
Yes. So I there's a particular Ronald McDonald Children's Hospital or cancer center in LA that I donate to. But find your own, make a donation, and hopefully this week's Lock of the Week will hit as well. Are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, which game you want to throw up first?
Let's just go in order. Let's go. This one almost made the cut. In fact, this is the subject of a bet between myself and our boss, Neil Hornsby.
This is true.
Cincinnati +6 at Buffalo, total 44. Probably brief, but
this game is just, I feel as though I know so little about both of these teams.
Uh-huh.
And while I do, to me, the Bengals are certainly better than they looked on Sunday. And 6 feels like too many. But I also am assuming that Josh Allen just like comes back to earth. And that would be really painful to lose because Josh Allen turns out to actually be doing very well. So I do think there is a good bit of value on the Bengals, given that it's 6. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the same. I like the Bengals only because I was in a conversation with Neil about them.
What did you guys decide the bet was going to be?
I think if the Bills cover the spread, I have to wear a suit, I think, next Thursday, including the podcast. And then I think if the Bengals cover, I think Neil has to – I can't remember what it is. I think Neil has to eat cheese pizza for like a week or something.
You already did that, though.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, actually. I'll have to ask him.
It should be that he doesn't get to drink Coke Zero.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I kind of –
You got your suit ready?
Yeah, I have my suit ready.
All right. You okay there?
Yep.
All right. Let's move onward then, since it's not going to be Bengals Bills. Let's go to let's talk quickly about the 220 plus point spreads.
Okay.
Do you have any desire?
I mean, I think the right side is both dogs, but I don't have any desire to make them the lock of the week.
Really?
Yeah.
20 plus.
Yeah, I just don't. For me, it's one of those things where I don't know the motive. Like, honestly, like, how motivated are the Dolphins? And the other thing is, for a couple of these teams, like, I mean, Dallas is still trying to prove to the world that they're still a good team.
True.
That being said, Dallas has let the other team score. Like, we didn't have the under hit last week.
Yeah.
So,
if you had to take one, which one would you go with, though? It's got to be the Dolphins.
I think it has to be the Dolphins just because I just have absolutely zero faith in Luke Falk. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I think the Dolphins, if you have to hold your nose and take cold water.
Yep.
All right, next one that is probably a real game that we actually want to discuss here briefly. The Denver Broncos getting 7.5 in Green Bay. 7.5 is a nice number to get. And my question is that enough to make Joe Flacco seem appealing?
Man, I do like Denver's side on this. I think Green Bay is very much like
here's a crazy one
beating two bad offenses and now and now
Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers basically the same grade.
I know.
So far
Unreal.
this season. You know who's going to love that? Is our buddy Ben Baldwin.
Yeah, he does not like Aaron Rodgers.
Hate is a strong word.
Yeah, but
so given that they're similar quarterbacks, 7.5 seems like a lot, right?
Yes, I do think so. I think Green Bay. So this would imply that Green Bay is 3.5, 4 points better, 5 points maybe on a neutral field. And I just don't, from our ELO perspective, I guess Green Bay has risen here, and it's in many reasons because their defense has been pretty good. The Broncos certainly aren't going to change that. But I don't know. The Broncos gave the Bears a game last week. I think the Bears and the Packers are very similarly yoked teams, so they'll probably at least be able to keep this within a touchdown. I don't like it as a lock of the week because I don't like Joe Flacco.
Okay. You really didn't have to sell me hard on that one. I'm totally out. All right. How about Ravens Chiefs? When we talked about this game on Sunday night or Monday morning, I think both of us felt as though 6.5, 7 would elicit a backing of the Baltimore Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
It is 6.5. So are we still doing that?
Well, it looks like our numbers I like our numbers like Kansas City. It has moved down from 7 to 6.5. But what I really like here is the over. And it's opened at 51, got all the way out to like 54, 55. Now it's back to 52.5. I think it's very much a buy. It's very much a buy at 52.5, in my opinion. So I don't know. That's where I like to see this game. I think the Ravens defense is a little bit more vulnerable than people want to say. The Cardinals got inside the 10-yard line a bunch of times, had to kick field goals. Otherwise, that would have been probably
they didn't have to.
Right.
They decided to.
But also Kansas City is one of those teams where, Tyreek Hill being out might suppress this number a little bit, but we've seen that, he can make, Mahomes can make do with Sammy Watkins. He can make do with Demarcus Robinson, Travis Kelce. And I think the kicker here is that both running backs are out, which means I think Kansas City will throw more, and that just means more points.
Both quarterbacks playing at a ridiculous level. Each of them has an over 135 passer rating when clean and under pressure, making big-time throws at over 7%, which is more than double the league average. Turnover-worthy plays at below the league average. Jimmy Smith is going to be out again. The Chiefs can't cover. If Jalen Ramsey plays tonight, that means he can't play for Kansas City. This was a very competitive game last year. I would expect it to be competitive again. That means you need to score to win. All of those things, and the Tyreek Hill thing, I do think it is a bigger deal against a team like the Ravens, who is actually decent, whereas with the Raiders, it does not matter. Could be you or I out there. So that gives me a little bit of pause, but I think we should keep this one in consideration because rooting for points with Pat Mahomes
seems like a fair thing to do.
Usually a good thing to be on.
What about Colts at home laying 1.5? It was 2 at one point, laying 1.5 against our Falcons, who got off the schneid last week.
This is a perfect letdown game for the Falcons, right?
I think so.
They go on the road. We felt like this happened multiple times last year where they got a little bit of something, felt like it was better than nothing, and then just died. So I again have to go back to the simple fact that the better quarterback is getting points here, which makes it tough for me. I have trouble going against him, but and here's the other thing. We gave Dan Quinn positive reinforcement on that 4th down decision. So what if all of a sudden the floodgates open and he's just going for every 4th and short? That definitely helps them a little bit.
Darius Leonard's still in a concussion protocol. Obviously, no Andrew Luck. We've seen some good things out of Brissett. I think the coaching advantage is clearly on the side of Reich here. But I think the talent is clearly on the side of the Falcons. I'm going to make the Falcons win again, though. I mean, I don't know. I could totally see the Colts blowing out the Falcons in a very demoralizing way. But I'm not. I don't know if I'm all that firm on it.
I've never let this happen to me, and I'm not going to let it happen now.
Yep.
This happens. I feel like all the time in TV shows or real life where you break up with someone, we're over, and I'm not going back to that well again. And then all of a sudden they come back just one time, say, you know what, I miss you. I've kind of been a bad boyfriend or girlfriend. Just give me one more chance.
Yep.
And then you do, and you just get burned again. Not me, not this guy. All right, so for that reason, we are taking it off the list.
What about Oakland at Minnesota? Oakland
getting 9.
Total 43.5. Minnesota coming off of a miserable loss, frankly, in Green Bay. Kirk Cousins, 31 grades so far through 2 games. Derek Carr, not quite as bad.
Cousins' ratio of big-time throws to turnover-worthy throws is
it's a
1 to 9.
I was saying this
ridiculous.
Yeah, almost half of Kirk Cousins' negatively graded throws end up being turnover-worthy.
He has a 75 passer rating when clean. Now, Carr's at 80, so, neither of them are great. Though this feels like the team the Vikings beat.
Yeah, this is the team that Cousins can beat. This is how Cousins gets to 8 wins every year.
Dalvin Cook is going to have 700 carries in this game. Prove me wrong.
Can't wait.
So let's take that one off the list. Jets, Patriots already discussed. No, absolutely not. Do you think they crossed the 50?
No. The only way that I can see this game, the Jets covering, is I think that New England wins like 21-0.
Yeah, they just solved it away.
Yeah.
Sony Michel plays quarterback. Lions, Eagles -6.
It's tough because the Eagles have a lot of injuries. I think those are starting to get, picked up in the model. This has come down a little bit since opening. Wentz didn't play great on Sunday night. He made some good throws. Stafford has had a decent time of it so far, 122.6 passer rating when clean. Taylor Decker questionable, so you could see some of that pass rush for the Eagles getting to the line. I can't support backing the Lions on the road against a team with a very good coach and probably even with all of the issues, a far more talented roster. So I'm going to lay off here.
Philly has the third lowest EPA per early down play, and that's just something that I would like to avoid having to bet on. This is one that I personally would have gone the other way with. Cardinals Panthers. The Cardinals are getting 2.5 at home. I think the Panthers are terrible. Now, the Cam Newton news comes out. That worries me, though, because now they have an upgrade at passer. But Cam Newton wasn't running, so it's just a waste. Like, why are you playing Cam Newton if he can't run? I guess there's theoretically a chance that Newton plays. He hasn't been ruled out yet, but I would assume he does not.
And I have Brandon Allen in the model here. So the thing is I think this is, again, another classic sort of overreaction. People are going to overreact to the fact the Panthers lost 2 consecutive home games to start the season against probably a good team and a not-so-good team. The not-so-good team was on national television, so people are pretty upset about that. Newton, we're going to come up with this when we get to Pittsburgh as well. The downgrade from Newton to Allen is a lot smaller than people think because of how poorly Newton has been playing. Allen has played, he held off Will Grier, wasn't that hard, but he played well in Newton's stead a season ago. And then the Cardinals were, I think, pretty competitive on the road in Baltimore last week, which I think people are going to give, lend a decent amount of credence to.
Yeah.
But when you look at this, I think Kingsbury still sort of getting his feet wet, poor decision making. Panthers, I think their defense is better than it was in the past or how we predicted it. And so I think this is just overreaction on both ends. I like where Carolina is here. I think Arizona is still one of the worst teams in the league, and Carolina is not.
Better quarterback at home getting points. That's all I'll say. Daniel Jones, 6.5-point underdog in Tampa Bay. To me, this seems like a wonderful opportunity to fade the guy that played against third stringers in preseason and did well, and everyone's hyped up about. And really, the bigger issue is that the Giants can't defend anybody. And if there's ever a team that you want coming into your place to get your offense back on track, it is this Giants defense. And the Bucs actually have some playmakers now on the defensive side of the ball where they can take advantage of rookie quarterback. So I kind of like this one, but you are skeptical, and I think it's because you have been driving the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bandwagon. You have been captaining that ship, and it hasn't been the smoothest ride. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that why you're averse to this one?
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of. I mean, the issue.
You are a fan of Jameis Winston.
I am a fan of Jameis Winston as a concept.
And his 24 passer rating under pressure.
Yeah.
And 7% turnover-worthy play rate.
He limited that the other day, although he did throw a play pass to Luke Kuechly that was unreal.
They've been worse per pass than per run.
I think your better play here, though, is the under. Because we see it. I tweeted out the other day how good the Giants have been running the football, especially on early game, but also early downs. Tampa Bay has been terrific at rushing the passer. Shaq Barrett 3 sacks on the last Thursday night's game. Obviously, they sort of built this idea of Newton being a little bit more contained on Thursday night. That game went under, right? Despite that was a 51 or something like that. Giants are not as good of an offense as the Panthers. So
and their only play is to run the ball.
And their only play is to run the ball. They still don't have any receivers. I think they're going to try to, quote, protect Daniel Jones. So for me, at 48 here, I sort of like the under a little bit.
Enough to make it the lock of the week?
No.
All right, onward we move. Texans, Chargers. This is actually kind of an interesting game. But at 3, this is kind of tough. I think this is pretty spot on, right? The Chargers have suffered a ridiculous number of injuries.
Mm-hmm.
The Texans have never die, never quit Deshaun Watson.
That's tough.
I think this will be one of the more entertaining games of the week, but I want nothing to do with either side.
Yeah, this number has popped out from. So if you look at, cover probabilities and all that stuff on Green Line, like 3, it's sort of 3's at -120. So you have to bump up your cover probability in those situations. It bumps out to 3.5 every once in a while. We've seen quickly goes back to 3 because I think people are willing to bet the Texans plus 3.5 here against a Chargers team that should be better, right? But they should have been better than Detroit last week. And so for that reason, I like the Chargers moving forward. I think they're a playoff team, but not this week.
Okay. There are 3 games left over that I want to talk about.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about the Monday night game.
Yeah.
Bears, Redskins.
We'll talk about that maybe Sunday night if we have to.
Yeah. That's when we'll talk about it, if we must. Saints Seahawks is one that has a lot of compelling components to it. Obviously, the quarterback situation for the Saints. And for that reason, even though – so 4 feels super short, right? It's like the Seahawks are at home. They have a great quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But the Saints, you're like, I don't have a clue what the Teddy Bridgewater Taysom Hill hybrid could be, and it could be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who knows? Sean Payton is an absolute wizard back there. They could come out with something, and the Seahawks are not going to be prepared for it. And I think that is what makes this one so tough, is if you had seen the Saints once with a game plan, maybe you have a better feel, but because you have no feel for them, and the Seahawks don't have a feel for them, and they have such a strong team kind of all around them, this one is a hard one for me to do.
When I look at this game, I see several ways the Saints can win. I think the Saints have a way better defense than the Seahawks. The Seahawks gave up 2 touchdowns to Mason Rudolph after being ahead. Basically, after Big Ben got hurt. Seattle still wants to run the ball too much on early downs and early in the game. And Russell Wilson has been terrific, but again, like in terms of like talent on the outside, they're getting by with not that great of talent on the outside. Just Wilson being brilliant. There's always sort of this game every once in a while where Wilson isn't as good as he should be. I think, obviously Bridgewater has not played well ever since he's been on the Saints, but they've never game planned with him as the quarterback before, or Taysom Hill. So that team still has Michael Thomas. They still have Jared Cook. They still have Alvin Kamara. They still have a pretty good offensive line. So for me, I think, I think it's Saints or nothing here. But I don't like. There's so much unknown that I don't want to put it on sort of the list.
I mean, Russell Wilson has been absolutely absurd so far this season, and I am not willing to go against that. Okay, 2 games left that are both interesting. Let's start with Steelers at 49ers. The Niners are 6.5-point favorites. I've heard many wonderful trends about the last time the Steelers won on the road in San Francisco was 1942 and, all this stuff. But let's focus on the teams that are actually playing in this game. And I have a claim that I want you to either agree with or tell me why I'm wrong. Mason Rudolph might not actually be a downgrade from Ben Roethlisberger, given how Roethlisberger has been playing.
I agree. We talked about this in our article. Mason Rudolph has the lowest rate of negatively graded throws. He has 19 dropbacks, but you get what I'm saying. He's limiting those. Big Ben, on the other hand, over the last 2 seasons was one of the highest players in terms of generating negatively graded throws.
And turnover-worthy plays.
That offense is designed for other people to take passes and make plays with them. If Mason Rudolph can make passes, precise, accurate, things like that, they have a good offensive line. They have a good running back. They have a really good, number 1 receiver. And a bunch of pretty solid receivers other than Moncrief.
As long as you get Moncrief out of there, you'll be.
They're
in
probably
good
fine.
shape.
And
because James Washington, in fairness, he was a guy that Ben Roethlisberger, you could see, just didn't have a good feel for. And now all of a sudden you have a quarterback that kind of understands the way that he plays. That maybe actually bumps him up to being a legitimate like second or third option. You have Deontay Johnson, who made a nice play.
Vance McDonald's a pretty good tight end. Also revenge game for Vance McDonald, being a former 49er. And then here's the other side of the ball, because whenever I think about the Niners, I do think that offense scares me, right? I think about last year
top 5 so far
on a Thursday Night Football. Oh, they were starting Nick Mullins, and everybody bet on Oakland, and Nick Mullins absolutely shredded Oakland up. The thing is, I think the Steelers have some of the goods that can stop an offense like San Francisco. Minkah Fitzpatrick in the inside, covering inside against the tight ends, on those crossers. You also have Devin Bush, who they drafted to cover running backs out of the backfield and to stop the run. And then the San Francisco offensive line missing Joe Staley this week. I think that there's enough there where I think the Steelers shouldn't be a 6.5, 7 point underdog, in which case I kind of really like them here.
Joe Staley doesn't worry me as much because Jimmy G's been getting rid of the ball in 2.2 seconds,
right.
So it doesn't matter. And the Pittsburgh defense doesn't worry me that much.
Yep.
But here's the thing. To me, this is all about, is Mason Rudolph a competitive quarterback?
Yep.
Because if it is, then 6.5 is too many points. And the way that you make him a non-competitive quarterback is you give him no shot at throwing to open receivers, because there will be some. The Niners coverage has played well so far, but it is not the greatest in the world. Dee Ford and Nick Bosa, both injured. To be seen if they play.
Surprise, surprise.
And the Pittsburgh Steelers, great at scheming, those clean pockets, right? Good screen game, a lot of quick throws. Ben Roethlisberger enjoyed the most clean pockets of any quarterback, and a large portion of that was that he was setting records in terms of quick throws. I mean, the guy was just getting out of there super quickly, and he was a guy that actually has been one of the worst throwers of the football in that ever so valuable 10 to 19 yard range, below 70 pass rating past few years, aggregated. So I actually think that Mason Rudolph is a competitive quarterback, and for that reason, 6.5 is too many points. I hate betting against my guy.
Niners. But you'll do it if you have to.
My guy. So I'll do it if we have to. There's one more game we have to discuss, and that is an opportunity that I have been
just waiting for.
I have been waiting all offseason since the schedule
waiting
came
all day
out
for Sunday night.
For this moment, for Carrie Underwood to strut her stuff, show the world how special this night is, and then to have the opportunity to take Sean McVay as 3-point or less favorite against Fredford Kitchens and the Cleveland Browns in their first game in primetime in forever, since Tim Couch was playing or something like that.
I mean, maybe. Probably. They haven't been on Sunday Night Football since 2008?
I think so. Actually, I think I know the answer to this.
2007 they were good with Derek Anderson, and I think that was probably the next year. And
I can find out for you. It was 2008 versus the Steelers.
Yeah.
Was the last time. So they have no clue what is coming for them. The Rams, on the other hand, have dealt with this situation a lot over the past couple of years. They were the darling. They all of a sudden showed up on primetime a bunch. They've been embarrassed on the biggest stage in the Super Bowl. They are ready for this situation. They have our third best team in terms of ELO, PFF ELO ranking. The Browns are 19th. The Browns,
rightfully so.
Rightfully so. The Browns just put on what is deemed a gritty, impressive performance.
Stop.
Against the Jets.
Yeah.
Who were a disaster. I mean, a total
an utter
disaster.
Travesty. Yeah.
The big touchdown that they had was a violation of human rights for what Greg Williams did to that defense. -3, I get that they're on the road. I do not care. The Rams offense is significantly better than the Browns offense, and the Rams defense significantly better than the Browns defense and their coach, even though my man Sean McVay he's not yet getting there with the fourth downs. He's working on it. I have a growth mindset. He will get there.
Well, the thing that you told me the other day about the Browns and how they did so many great things out of heavier personnel last year, and now that they're running a lot of 11, it just doesn't. Again, it's sort of this thing where we talk about these teams as if they make good or bad decisions, when in reality the majority of them just make decisions. and some of them end up just being lucky.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that point. So that what I was mentioning was on first and second down with Kitchens last year, they were running a heavy set, 2 or fewer wide receivers, about 81% of the time. And now they have all these receivers, they're doing it about half the time. Big drop off. With Kitchens last year, their yards per play on early downs was first, and it's dropped to like 27th or something this season. And Sean McVay has kind of done the opposite, where he said, my best players are my 3 receivers, so I'm going to play those guys. And I don't care if it means I run 11 personnel 95% of the time. I'm going to do what is best for my team. And it allows them to run a lot of this tempo stuff after first downs, to run play action, bunch stuff that all looks the same, and it does well for his team. It seems like the Browns are doing the opposite, which is to say, well, now we have all these players. We have to make them happy. They want to do this. They want to do that. And it has not worked so far.
Yeah, and so for me, I look at, okay, both these teams are struggling, but what is going to regress more quickly to what we expect? I think an undisciplined team like Cleveland's going to stay undisciplined. I mean, Myles Garrett had like 3 offside penalties the other day. They didn't correct a lot of their.
He leads the NFL in sacks and hits combined and penalties.
Yeah. So and I don't think the Rams with Whitworth are really going to struggle as much with him as the Jets did with Calvin Beachum or whoever they have at left tackle.
Havenstein might be another issue. But.
Yeah. But so I look at that and I'm happy with that. Also, the defense for the Rams has played pretty well. Granted, they weren't tested so much by Newton and Bridgewater, but I don't think that this Browns offense is anything to write home about. Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters, Nickel Roby-Coleman will be game for the receivers the Browns have.
This is a big one for them, right?
Ninjoku's injured, so I don't think that he's going to play.
Tantalizing and frustrating.
And I think that Nick Chubb, they'll try to establish the run with Nick Chubb, which will
I'm here for that.
Which we're here for. So this is a good one as well.
Meanwhile, the Rams working Malcolm Brown. Malcolm Brown looks. I don't like to disparage Todd Gurley because I think he's a phenomenal athlete. Malcolm Brown has looked really solid. That offense with Malcolm Brown has been better with passing the ball and running the ball significantly compared to when Todd Gurley is in the game. But they seem to be willing to play him a significant amount. So I think it comes up down to these last 2 games.
Yeah,
I agree. The Pittsburgh plus 6.5 and Rams -3. Where does your most of your faith lie?
Man, I like getting points, right? I think that's always a good thing. And I think we now that the number is at 6.5, I'm less likely to like that as much with Pittsburgh. So let's take a good team to trounce a bad team.
I've been waiting for this opportunity.
So let's go Rams
to take
-3.
Sean McVay against Freddie Kitchens.
Let's go Rams -3.
There it is. So hopefully we get this one. We can make another donation to Cancer Research. Maybe you out there are inspired. You can get yourself some new sneakers. Have some fun with it. We're going to close out on this. We have 2 quick stories from the Cincy Y. The first one is one that is pretty darn impressive. You've been working hard for this all off season, and finally it happened.
Yeah, I
threw down.
I dunked a basketball for the first time since I was like in my late 20s.
And it wasn't like fresh into the gym. It was in between games. You just grab the ball, drop step, dunk, smash. And it was right before.
I saw Steve doing it a bunch. I'm like,
Steve's 9 feet tall.
And Steve's 9 feet tall, so I figured why not try? I hadn't so much as tried for a long time, but I hadn't done it in like, probably 6-7 years, and so boom.
No, it's awesome. And then you took that confidence and spun it into a really inspired performance when we played in the next game. We won, and that's really what I care about. I care about winning. I count wins, not dunks.
That's true.
Here's my story. I am working out on Monday evening pretty late because it had been a long day, and I'm at my gym in my apartment building. There's no one there. The lights are off when I walk in. So I guess it's going to be great. No one's going to be here. I put the Monday night game on. I turn it way up so I can hear it. I'm working out. And about 30 minutes in, guy walks in with his, I want to say, 12-year-old daughter.
Not a good start.
She is clearly the one that is there to work out because she's wearing like tennis shoes. My man has got flip-flops and socks on.
Same.
And has a koozie with a tall boy.
Stop.
So his poor daughter And it's not like he's in great shape. His poor daughter goes over there and hops on the elliptical, and he basically stands next to the elliptical. Now, notice, it's not like there's one elliptical here. He could theoretically also be working out. But no. Socks and sandals guy sits there sipping his beer, and I at least would expect this guy to be like, you know what? Like, take my daughter to the gym.
Grab your Kindle. Just read a book.
Sure, but Monday Night Football's on.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah.
look, if you're going to, take your daughter to the gym, you're going to enjoy a beer, watch the game. It gets better.
Oh, no.
The E Network is on. The middle TV, it's on mute. I happened to catch him not looking at the game, but entranced.
Yeah.
On the E Network that's on mute with subtitles, drinking a beer, socks and sandals while his daughter is working out. And that summed up humanity at this point, and that's why I'm moving to Mars.
Be an upgrade.
That was our show. We'll be back early on Sunday or Monday morning, and we're going to get the show up early for you as well. So if you're driving to work on Monday, you'll have it for you. Enjoy the week, and take McVay against Freddie Kitchens. See you guys.